She looked at the flash drive. "We'll get this to the feds. Rise Tech's not going down, not now, not ever," he smiled. "And what about you?" Emily stood, tall and grounded. "I'm done living in reaction to my past. It's time to live for my future." That evening, she addressed her team in the main auditorium. "Rise Tech was born from pain," she said, "but it will grow from purpose. No matter who tries to stop us, we'll rise higher together." Her employees, many of whom had their own stories of hardship, stood and clapped, not just for their CEO, but for a survivor who had become a leader. The auditorium was buzzing with anticipation. Months had passed since Rise Tech's launch, and today was the company's first Impact Summit, a live-streamed event celebrating the stories of people who had been empowered through Emily's platform. The seats were filled with founders, mentors, single parents, coders, community leaders, all faces that reminded Emily why she built Rise Tech in the first place. She stood backstage, her hand resting on Ethan's small shoulder. He had grown so much. His once worried eyes now sparkled with mischief and curiosity. "You ready, Mom?" he asked. She smiled. "I've never been more ready." As the lights dimmed and the stage lit up, Emily walked to the podium to a thunderous standing ovation. She paused, letting the applause settle, then began. "A few years ago, I stood outside this very city with nothing but a hungry child and shattered dreams. I had been betrayed, abandoned, and forgotten." The room fell silent. But I wasn't broken. I was becoming. She glanced toward Ethan, who sat beside Daniel in the front row. "Today, Rise Tech has funded over 200 startups. We've connected thousands of mentors and mentees. We've launched shelters, scholarships, and innovation hubs across the country. Not because I'm a millionaire, not because I'm a CEO, but because," she placed a hand over her heart, "I remembered what it felt like to be left behind, and I vowed no one else would be." Applause rose again, this time teary and emotional. After the keynote, Emily was led backstage for one final surprise. A staffer handed her a tablet, her eyes wide. "You're going to want to see this." The live stream had gone viral. Messages poured in, from women in shelters watching the summit on cracked phones, from young girls building code in library basements, from elderly mothers proud of their grown daughters starting businesses. But one comment caught Emily's eye. "I saw her years ago in Central Park. She gave my baby a blanket and didn't even ask for anything in return. I never forgot her kindness. Seeing her now, I know the world can change." Emily blinked back tears. "That day, I thought no one noticed," she whispered. Daniel appeared beside her, placing a gentle hand on her back. "They did," he said, "and now the world is watching you give it back tenfold." That night, Emily stood alone on her balcony, the city's lights stretching beneath her like stars scattered on Earth. She clutched a photo, one Carla had sent her weeks ago. Carla and her daughter standing proudly at a school science fair. Her daughter had won first place with a robotics project developed through Rise Tech's Youth Accelerator. "She's going to change the world," Carla had written, "just like you did." Emily smiled through the tears. She looked to the sky, remembering every sleepless night, every broken promise, every moment of doubt. And then she breathed in the truth. She made it, not because life got easier, but because she got stronger. From beggar to builder, from betrayed to beloved. Emily didn't just survive the fall, she became the reason others could rise. The city buzzed with the usual early morning chaos, honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the hum of ambition. Daniel Cross barely noticed. He had mastered tuning out the world years ago, ever since becoming CEO of one of the country's top tech firms. His days were measured in seconds, every moment scheduled, optimized, monetized. But that morning, someone broke through the noise. It happened just outside his downtown headquarters. His chauffeur had pulled up in the black Bentley, and Daniel stepped out, adjusting his tailored coat, when he noticed a figure huddled near the building's steps. A woman, thin, wrapped in a torn coat 2 sizes too large, her dark hair tangled in the wind. Beside her sat a small child, maybe 4 years old, holding a crumpled teddy bear and staring blankly at the moving crowd. He wasn't sure what made him stop. He'd passed dozens of people on the streets before, faces that blurred into the background. But there was something different about her, something achingly familiar. She looked up just for a second and their eyes locked. Daniel froze. He knew that face. Not just in the fleeting déjà vu kind of way, he truly knew her. "Emily," he said aloud before he could stop himself. Her eyes widened. She blinked twice slowly and then looked down at the child again. It was her, Emily Turner. They'd gone to high school together. She was the quiet one, always sketching in notebooks, always kind. They'd shared a few classes, a few laughs, and one unforgettable moment under the bleachers during a rainstorm when the fire drill interrupted class. She'd never chased popularity. Never had to. She was real, and now she was sitting on a sidewalk with a child in the same city where he ruled the skyline. "Emily, is that really you?" He stepped closer, forgetting the board meeting that was supposed to start in 5 minutes. She didn't answer. Her eyes shimmered, but not with recognition, with shame. She turned her face slightly, shielding the child. "I didn't expect you to recognize me," she whispered. "Most people don't." He knelt beside her, his voice soft. "What happened?" Emily hesitated, her hand instinctively reaching out to shield the boy. "Life happened." Daniel swallowed hard. She looked so different, yet still had that quiet strength behind her sadness. "Come with me," he said. "At least let me get you something warm, food, anything." But Emily shook her head. "I'm not your problem, Daniel. I never was." Her words stung more than he expected. He wasn't sure why it mattered so much that she'd pushed him away. "I want to help." "You can't fix this," she said. "Some things, they stay broken." Before he could respond, the child, her son, spoke for the first time. "Mommy, who's the man?" Daniel looked at the boy, his heart sinking and swelling at once. And in that fragile moment, standing on the cold sidewalk of his empire, Daniel Cross, millionaire, CEO, untouchable, realized something. He couldn't walk away from this. Not again. Daniel watched the little boy tug gently at Emily's sleeve, eyes filled with trust only a child could give. Something clenched in his chest, not pity, but a fierce, protective urgency. He couldn't just walk away. "I'm not trying to fix your life," he said gently, "but I can offer you warmth. For him, if not for you." Emily looked up, her eyes guarded. "He hasn't eaten since yesterday," she admitted quietly, like the words burned to say. That was all Daniel needed to hear. "There's a cafe just around the corner. Quiet, I'll get you both a meal, no strings." She hesitated. Her pride was thick, but the way her son leaned into her told him she didn't have much choice. "Okay," she said finally. Inside the cafe, the warm smell of baked bread and fresh coffee clung to the air. Daniel chose a corner booth away from the windows. Emily sat across from him, keeping her son close to her side. The boy clutched the menu with wide eyes as if it were a treasure map. "What's his name?" Daniel asked, watching him with soft curiosity. "Liam," she replied. "He's 5. "Hi, Liam," Daniel said, smiling. "You like pancakes?" The boy nodded enthusiastically. Daniel flagged a waiter. 2 stacks of pancakes, extra syrup, and a hot chocolate with marshmallows. And coffee for us, please." Emily said nothing, her fingers tracing the cracked edge of the table. Daniel studied her face, tired, worn, but still beautiful in a way time couldn't erase. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was thick with everything unspoken. After Liam began devouring his pancakes, Daniel leaned forward. "Emily, what happened to you?" She looked out the window, then down at her chipped nails. "After school, I got a scholarship to an art institute in Chicago. I was doing okay. Then I met someone." His stomach sank. He was charming, smart, promised the world. "We moved in together after a year, then the lies started. The money went missing. He'd disappear for days, come back angry. When I got pregnant, I thought it would change him." Daniel listened, jaw tight. "He left when Liam was 2, she said, voice steady but hollow. "No support, no money, I had to drop everything to survive." "And your family?" "My mom died when I was 19. Dad left long before that." No one to fall back on. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. Emily had fallen through the cracks of a world he'd built walls to avoid. While he was building an empire, she was surviving minute by minute. "I should have looked you up sooner," he said. "I didn't even know you were in the city." "You weren't supposed to," she whispered. "That's the thing about people like me. We disappear." He leaned forward. "Not anymore." She looked at him, startled. "You're not invisible, Emily. Not to me." Liam giggled mid-bite, his face messy with syrup. The sound cut through the heaviness like sunlight breaking clouds. Emily smiled, and for a second, Daniel saw the girl he remembered, light, alive, whole. And in that quiet moment, a decision settled deep in Daniel's heart. He wasn't going to walk away from her again. The rain had started again by the time they stepped out of the cafe, a soft drizzle that clung to the skin and soaked through slowly. Daniel instinctively shrugged off his coat and draped it over Emily's shoulders. She froze, then looked at him with cautious eyes, but didn't pull away. "You don't have to do that," she murmured. "Yes, I do," he said simply. Liam clutched his mother's hand, the last marshmallow from his hot chocolate still melting in his mouth. For the first time since Daniel had seen him, the boy smiled. It did something to Daniel, like someone had opened a forgotten room in his chest. "Where are you staying?" Daniel asked as they paused on the sidewalk. She hesitated. "There's a shelter on East 9th. It's not safe, not really, but it's warm. They don't always have space." Daniel looked up at the looming clouds. "You're not going back there tonight." Daniel, I'm serious. I have an extra apartment, fully furnished, empty, safe. You and Liam can stay there for as long as you need. Emily stared at him like he was offering her a ticket to the moon. I can't accept that, she said firmly. I don't want to owe anyone anything. You won't owe me. It's not charity, it's kindness. And I think we both know you would have done the same for me. That made her pause, her defenses faltered. Please, Emily, let me help. She looked down at Liam, who was already dozing off, his head resting against her hip. All right, she whispered. Just for a few nights, until I find work. Daniel nodded, relieved. Deal. The apartment was on the 17th floor of a luxury building just outside the city center. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, plush carpets, and a view of the skyline that made Emily stop in her tracks. Liam lit up like a Christmas tree, racing to the sofa and bouncing on it with joy. Emily, meanwhile, stood quietly in the entryway, her arms wrapped around herself. This is too much, she said, overwhelmed. We don't belong here. Daniel shook his head. You belong wherever your son smiles. That's your home. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for the first time since their reunion, something like trust flickered in her eyes. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Don't say anything, he replied. Just rest. Later that night, back in his penthouse office, Daniel stood at the window, staring into the fogged city lights. His assistant, Claire, stepped in with his updated schedule, but he waved her off. I need to cancel tomorrow morning's meeting, he said suddenly. Claire blinked. The investor roundtable? Yes, reschedule it. Claire hesitated. Everything all right, sir? Daniel turned toward her, his mind still at the cafe, at Emily, at Liam's syrup-stained grin. For the first time in a long time, he said softly, I think it might be. Emily woke up to sunlight streaming through the tall windows, warming the soft cream sheets beneath her. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The room was too quiet, too clean, too safe. Then she heard Liam giggling from the living room, and everything came back. The apartment, Daniel, the pancakes, the offer that felt too generous to be real. She sat up slowly, her muscles aching not from physical pain, but from the emotional weight she had carried too long. For the first time in years, there was no shouting in the hallway, no fear of eviction, no hunger gnawing at her stomach. She stepped into the kitchen, barefoot, finding Liam sitting cross-legged on the floor with building blocks, a plate of cut-up fruit beside him. Morning, sweetheart, she said softly. He grinned. This place has cartoons on a big screen, Mommy, Emily laughed. It felt foreign, rusted from lack of use. She made coffee, savoring its warmth, and walked out to the balcony. The city buzzed far below, but up here, it felt like a different world. She wrapped Daniel's oversized coat tighter around her and breathed deeply. She had no idea how long this bubble would last, but for now, she was in it. Later that day, a knock at the door startled her. She opened it cautiously to find Claire, Daniel's assistant, holding a folder and a calm, professional smile. Hi, Emily, Claire said warmly. Daniel asked me to stop by. He told me you're looking for work. Emily blinked. Yes, but I didn't think he'd. He asked if I'd help. He's connected to a lot of people. I brought you a list of potential jobs that match your background, and a voucher for Liam's daycare if you're okay with that. Emily's breath caught. Why is he doing this? Claire softened. Because he remembers who you are, and maybe he needs someone to remind him who he used to be. Emily lowered her gaze. I used to paint, she murmured. I haven't held a brush in 5 years. Claire handed her a card. There's a small creative agency downtown. They're hiring a junior designer. I pulled a few strings. You've got an interview tomorrow at 10. Emily took the card, her fingers trembling. Something inside her flickered, hope maybe, or courage. Thank you, she whispered. Claire smiled. No need, Daniel believes in you, and I think you're starting to believe in yourself too. That evening, as Liam napped on the couch, Emily sat at the small desk near the window. Her fingers hovered over the blank sketchpad Claire had also brought. Just in case you feel inspired, she'd said with a wink. Emily exhaled. She drew one line, then another. A soft curve, a streak of light. Her hand shook, but her heart was steady. She was still in there, the girl who dreamed in color, who once saw the world in texture and tones. Tears filled her eyes. She wasn't broken. She was rebuilding, one stroke at a time. Emily stood outside the modest office building, her palms slightly damp, her breath fogging in the chilly morning air. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. A design agency just off the main street, tucked between a cafe and a bookstore. The kind of place where new beginnings quietly took root. She hadn't worn business clothes in years, but Claire had taken her shopping 2 days ago, insisting on it. Now, dressed in a soft gray blouse and neatly pressed trousers, Emily felt almost like herself again. Or maybe a version of herself she'd never dared to be. The receptionist greeted her warmly. "You must be Emily, they've been expecting you." The words carried a kind of reverence Emily hadn't felt in a long time. She followed the woman inside, clutching the leather folder that held her designs, old sketches, half-finished ideas, dreams salvaged from a past life. The interview was kinder than she expected. The creative director, a woman named June, looked over her sketches with genuine interest. "You've got a strong eye," June said, tapping one of the illustrations. "You've been out of the field for a while, though?" Emily nodded. "Life got complicated, but I never stopped creating. I just stopped believing I'd ever show anyone again." June smiled. "Well, it's time someone did. We'll be in touch soon." As Emily stepped out into the afternoon sun, she didn't know if she'd gotten the job, but for once she didn't feel like a failure for trying. That evening, Daniel called. "How did it go?" he asked. Emily was sitting on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the skyline in gold and fire. "I survived it," he chuckled. "That's not the same as succeeding." "I know," she said softly, "but it felt like enough for now." There was a pause. "You're doing more than surviving, Emily," he said. "You're healing." And maybe she was. 2 days later, she got the job. Liam twirled around the kitchen with excitement as she cried into her tea. She hadn't imagined this moment in years. A job, a routine, a future. The next morning, she stood outside the daycare, heart tight with guilt and gratitude. Liam clung to her at first, but when he saw the playroom and the other children, his eyes widened with curiosity. "You'll pick me up after?" he asked. "Always," she promised. Work was challenging, invigorating, and unfamiliar, but Emily soaked up everything. June took her under her wing, and her team welcomed her with warmth that made Emily question why she ever doubted her place in the world. But just as her confidence began to grow, so did the shadows. One afternoon, as she headed out to grab coffee for her team, she heard someone call her name, familiar, mocking. "Emily Winters." She froze, turning slowly. She saw him, Brent, her ex. The man who had vanished from her life when Liam was just a baby, leaving her with nothing but shattered dreams and overdue bills. He smirked, hands in his pockets, eyes full of superiority. Well, look who crawled out of the gutter." Emily's fingers clenched around her phone. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," she said evenly. He laughed. "You should be. I heard you're getting help from a certain Daniel Hale. Bet he doesn't know the whole story, does he?" Emily's pulse thundered. She didn't respond. She turned and walked away. But the crack in her armor had begun. Emily didn't mention Brent to anyone, not to June, not to Claire, not even to Daniel. She told herself it had been a fluke, a cruel twist of fate. He couldn't possibly know where she worked, couldn't possibly still care. But she knew Brent, knew the way he latched onto people like a parasite. And the look in his eyes that day wasn't random, it was planned. The next few days passed in a fog of tension. She still went to work, still picked Liam up on time, still answered Daniel's warm, thoughtful texts. But a piece of her had curled inward again, that old instinct to brace for the storm. And then on a rainy Thursday, she came home to find a plain white envelope taped to her apartment door. No stamp, no name, just her first name written in tight, sharp script. Inside was a single piece of paper, typed. "You may be living in a millionaire's castle now, but beggars don't stay queens forever. Let's meet." At the bottom, a time, a location, a coffee shop near her old neighborhood. Her hands trembled. Brent, of course. That night, Daniel called to check on her. His voice, warm and steady, made something in her unravel. "You sound off," he said gently. "Everything okay?" Emily hesitated. "Do you believe people can really change?" A pause, then, "I think pain can make people better or bitter, sometimes both." "Why?" She closed her eyes. "Just something I'm trying to figure out." She wanted to tell him, about Brent, about the fear pulsing beneath her ribs, but she didn't, not yet, not when everything still felt so fragile. The next day, she kept the note in her pocket all morning, her fingers brushing against it like a secret talisman. At lunch, she walked toward the cafe. She wasn't sure why. Curiosity, closure, or just the need to prove to herself that she wasn't the scared girl who used to hide behind cracked doors. The cafe was nearly empty. She spotted him immediately, Brent, in a leather jacket, nursing a cup of coffee like it was a prop in a performance. He smiled when he saw her. There she is. The princess of the penthouse. Emily didn't sit. "What do you want?" He leaned back unfazed. "Just thought we should chat. You've been hard to find, Em." She crossed her arms. "And you didn't look hard when you left me penniless with a baby." Brent shrugged. "Life happens." "No," she said coldly. "You happened, and I survived. Without you," his smirk faltered. "I don't want anything from you," she continued. "You don't scare me anymore." He stood, his tone turning colder. "Daniel Hale might not care about your past, but what about the people investing in his company? Think they'd love knowing he's supporting someone with a criminal record tied to her name? Emily blinked. What are you talking about? You'll find out soon, Brent said, slipping a thumb drive onto the table. You were too desperate back then to notice whose name went on the paperwork. She stared at the drive, her blood going cold. See you soon, Emily. And just like that, he walked out, leaving a ghost in his place. That night, after Liam had fallen asleep, Emily sat in the dark with the thumb drive in her hand. Had Brent used her name on his illegal dealings? Was that why the job interviews back then never called back? Her whole body tensed as a storm of emotions raged inside her. Anger, fear, betrayal. But above all, resolve. She would not run. Not this time. The thumb drive sat on Emily's kitchen table like a live wire. All night it pulsed in her mind, whispering threats, unearthing memories she'd buried deep. Liam slept soundly in the next room, his steady breathing a reminder of what mattered most. But Emily knew she couldn't ignore it. By morning, the fear had hardened into focus. She brewed a cup of coffee, slid the drive into her laptop, and opened the only file inside. A single folder. Inside it, legal contracts, financial documents, fraudulent loan applications from 7 years ago. The company name listed on all of them? A tech startup Brent had launched in her name, the same startup that mysteriously collapsed just before he disappeared. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Her name was on every line, every signature, every liability. She hadn't signed any of it, but it wouldn't matter, not to the people who didn't know her. Brent had used her trust and her desperation. Back then, she'd barely questioned what she was signing when he asked for help managing paperwork. She had been a scared, pregnant 21-year-old, clinging to the hope that the man she loved had a plan. He had, just not one that included her. Now, those ghosts had come to collect. By mid-morning, she stood outside Daniel Hale's sleek corporate tower. Her stomach twisted, her fingers tight around a small folder containing copies of the documents from the drive. He deserved to know. Whatever came next, she wouldn't lie to him, not after everything. As she stepped into the marble lobby, she half expected someone to stop her. She wasn't the same invisible woman she'd been months ago, but old fears lingered like shadows. Daniel was on the top floor, in his minimalist office overlooking the skyline. When she walked in, he smiled as if the world had just handed him something precious. But the look faltered when he saw her face. Emily, I need to tell you something, she said, setting the folder on his desk. Before someone else does. He listened silently as she explained everything. Her past with Brent, the fraud, her unknowing involvement, the note, the threats. By the end, her hands trembled. I didn't know, she said quietly, but I still feel responsible. I should have seen it. Daniel didn't speak for a long moment. He stared at the papers, then at her, and then he stood, walked around the desk, and took her hand. Thank you for telling me, he said, his voice gentle. Most people wouldn't. You're not angry. I'm furious, he said, but not at you, at him, at what he did to you. Emily's throat tightened. She hadn't realized how much she'd feared losing this, his belief in her. We'll fix this, he added, together. Tears welled in her eyes. You really think we can? I don't think, he said, offering a quiet smile. I know. That night, Emily sat on her balcony, wrapped in a blanket, Liam curled beside her. She watched the stars blink into life, each one a tiny promise in the sky. The past had found her, but so had the truth, and now so had someone willing to stand beside her, no matter the storm. The next morning, Emily woke with a strange clarity, like the fog of the past had finally lifted. For years, she'd been surviving. Now, for the first time, she felt something new blooming inside her, strength. Daniel's words still echoed in her ears. We'll fix this, together. He wasn't just comforting her, he meant it. By noon, his legal team was already combing through the documents Brent had forged. They assured her the evidence could be refuted, but they needed more, proof that she was unaware. Proof Brent had orchestrated everything, and they needed it fast, because Brent wasn't backing down. Later that day, Emily received another note, this time tucked inside her car door. Tick-tock, secrets don't stay buried. Let's make a deal before things get messy. Beneath it, a phone number. She handed it to Daniel, who looked at it grimly. He's escalating, he wants you afraid. I was, Emily admitted, for a long time, but not anymore. That evening, while reviewing the files again, Emily noticed something strange. One document, dated just days before Brent vanished, listed a witness signature she didn't recognize. She stared at the name, Jackson Lee. It rang a faint bell. She remembered him, one of Brent's old friends. He used to hang around during the startup phase, always in the background, always quiet. She hadn't thought about him in years, but now he might be the key. If anyone could confirm Brent's lies, it was Jackson. Daniel offered to have someone track him down, but Emily shook her head. I want to do this myself, she said. It's my name, my past. I need to face it. The next morning, she drove to the small used car dealership on the edge of town where Jackson supposedly worked. Place hadn't changed, same peeling paint, same crooked signs. She found him in the garage bay, wiping his hands on a rag. At first, he looked startled, then ashamed. "Emily," he said, his voice low, "I heard about what Brent did." "I need your help," she said, skipping pleasantries. "You signed a document I never saw. Do you remember it?" He hesitated, eyes darting. "Brent said it was just paperwork, said you knew." "I didn't," she said, "and now he's trying to destroy everything I've built." Jackson looked down. "He paid me to witness those forms. I didn't ask questions, but I kept copies, thought maybe one day someone would need the truth." Her heart jumped. "You have them," he nodded slowly. "Give me a few hours." By nightfall, Jackson delivered a folder to her apartment. Inside were scanned emails, messages from Brent, and copies of the contracts with clear evidence of manipulation. It was more than enough. When she showed Daniel, he exhaled with visible relief. "This changes everything. Now we go on offense." But Emily didn't want just legal victory. She wanted closure. She sat at her kitchen table that night, staring at her reflection in the dark window glass. The girl who had once begged Brent to stay no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who had survived heartbreak, betrayal, and humiliation. And now, she was ready to rise. Emily stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of Daniel's office, the city stretching out beneath her like a chessboard. The folder from Jackson sat on the table behind her, everything they needed to bring Brent down, legally and publicly. But she wasn't satisfied. She wanted him to see her, to know that the woman he discarded wasn't a victim anymore. Daniel entered, phone pressed to his ear. "He agreed to meet," he said, hanging up. "Private restaurant, neutral ground, just us." Emily's heart pounded, but her voice was calm. "Good, I'm ready." The restaurant was sleek and dimly lit, the kind of place Brent used to brag about when they were younger, when the illusion of success mattered more than the truth. Brent was already seated when they arrived, his sharp suit and smug smile intact. But Emily noticed the cracks beneath his polished surface, a flicker of uncertainty when he saw her, a tightening of the jaw when Daniel sat beside her. "Emily," Brent said smoothly. Looking radiant as always, shame it had to come to this. "No small talk," she replied, sliding the folder across the table. "You forged my name, you framed me for your failure, and now you're threatening me. That ends tonight." Brent's eyes skimmed the contents. For a moment he looked caught, then the smirk returned. "You think this is enough? You can't prove I forced you to sign anything." "I don't need to," she said. "Jackson did, and we have the emails. The trail leads straight to you." Daniel leaned in. "You have two choices. We take this to court publicly, or you sign a full confession, clear Emily's name, and walk away quietly before the feds come knocking." Brent's confidence wavered. "You're bluffing." "I'm not," Daniel said, his voice cold. "And you know it." For the first time, Brent looked cornered, but still, he tried one last time. "Emily, you really want to burn everything down over this? I made you who you are. Without me, you'd still be sleeping on a park bench with my son." She cut in. "You left us there, and I built myself back without you. You didn't make me, Brent, you broke me, and now I'm done letting you win." Brent's mask slipped. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Eventually, he reached for the pen. "I want immunity," he muttered. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "We'll see what the DA says," Brent signed. Just like that, it was over. Outside, Emily stood still for a moment, letting the cold night air hit her face. The city lights blurred around her, but inside, everything was crystal clear. "You were incredible in there," Daniel said softly. She turned to him, her voice steady. "I didn't do it for revenge, I did it to be free." Daniel smiled. "So what now?" Emily looked up at the sky, her heart finally light. "Now I live." Emily had expected peace after the confrontation. Instead, what followed was a strange, heavy stillness, as if the world was waiting, holding its breath. Brent was gone, his confession signed and filed. Her name was cleared. Daniel's team made sure every headline reflected the truth, but Emily felt restless. Freedom, she realized, wasn't as simple as winning. There were still fragments of the past she hadn't faced, memories buried too deep to ignore. It began with a letter, handwritten, no return address, tucked inside her apartment mailbox as if it had always been there. She opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Emily, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Carla. I knew you once, before everything fell apart. I was there the night you lost everything, and I saw what Brent did. I should have spoken up. I didn't, but I can't stay silent anymore. If you're ready, meet me where it all began." Beneath the note was a location, an old cafe near the university where Emily and Brent had once built dreams over burnt coffee and cheap notebooks. Emily sat back, her heart thundering. "Carla." The name tugged at a thread she hadn't touched in years. Carla had been Brent's assistant during their startup days, a quiet woman always in the background. Emily had trusted her once, until she vanished when everything collapsed. Daniel was cautious when Emily told him. It could be a trap, he said, or just someone seeking attention. Maybe, Emily replied, but if there's a piece of this story I haven't heard, I need to know. He nodded. Then I'll come with you. The cafe hadn't changed much. The walls still held mismatched frames and chalkboard menus. The same owner even waved from behind the counter. Emily scanned the room and then saw her. Carla, a little older, thinner, eyes haunted, she rose slowly when she saw Emily approach. I didn't know if you'd come, Carla said, voice soft. I almost didn't, Emily admitted. But I need answers. Carla lowered her gaze. Brent made me lie. He threatened to ruin my family. I had just found out I was pregnant. He told me if I didn't disappear, he'd drag me down with him. Tears welled in Carla's eyes as she slid a flash drive across the table. Everything is on here. Emails, voice memos, even the night he moved the money. I copied it all before I vanished. I've lived with the guilt every day. Emily reached out, steadying Carla's shaking hands. Why now? Because I saw you on the news, and I realized, if you had the courage to face him, then maybe I could too. That night, Emily sat in her apartment with Daniel as they opened the files together. Everything Carla said was true, and worse. Brent hadn't just manipulated Emily. He had laundered money, faked documents, and buried allies with him. Carla's files would seal his fate for good, but they also revealed something else. Among the emails was one Brent had sent weeks before he vanished. She's smarter than she knows. One day, Emily will rise higher than all of us. That's why I have to act before she sees her own power. Emily stared at the screen, stunned. He was afraid of me, she whispered. Daniel looked at her, pride shining in his eyes. He had every reason to be. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Daniel's office, catching the dust motes in golden light. Emily stood beside the conference table, staring at the final documents spread before her. Articles of incorporation, team bios, product rollout timelines, her company, her vision. After months of healing, of facing demons she never asked for, it was finally time to build something not out of survival, but purpose. She called it RiseTech, a startup devoted to giving single mothers and underrepresented entrepreneurs access to mentorship, funding, and digital tools to launch their ideas. She had once slept on a park bench with a child in her arms. Now she was giving others a ladder. And this time she was climbing too. Daniel leaned over her shoulder, scanning the logo mock-ups with a smile. You know, when I first met you, I had no idea I was looking at the next tech titan. Emily smiled, rolling her eyes. Flattery doesn't get you out of today's pitch meeting. He grinned. I wouldn't miss it. But Emily, seriously, are you ready? This is huge. She took a breath. I am, she meant it. The pitch meeting was held in a small auditorium in downtown Manhattan. Investors, partners, even media figures had RSVP'd once they heard who was behind the startup. Emily walked to the podium, dressed in quiet confidence and poise. No designer labels, no theatrics, just truth. She began with her story, not as a sob tale, but as proof that resilience could spark innovation. She spoke about rebuilding from rock bottom, of meeting people who extended kindness when she had nothing to give. And then she laid out her vision for RiseTech. We are not just creating another startup, she said. We are designing a system that makes room for those the world forgets. We are building bridges because I know what it's like to drown without one. The room fell silent. Then the applause came like a wave. Later that night, she sat on the rooftop with Daniel and Ethan, looking over the skyline. Her son leaned against her shoulder, holding a little toy drone they'd bought earlier. He was so much bigger now. His face carried no trace of the fear and hunger they once lived through. I'm proud of you, Mom, he whispered. Emily blinked away tears. I'm proud of you. Daniel handed her a glass of sparkling cider. To the beginning of everything, he said. Emily raised her glass. To every woman who was told she couldn't and still rose anyway. They clinked glasses, and for a moment, time stood still. Back in her apartment, as the city slept, Emily opened her inbox to see dozens of messages, some from potential partners, others from women telling their stories. But one email made her pause. It was from Carla. Emily, you don't know this, but I applied for the first RiseTech grant. Not for me, for my daughter. She's building a robotics app for kids, and because of you. She believes she can. You're changing lives already. Emily pressed her hand to her chest, breathing in the enormity of it. For the first time in years, the past didn't feel like a chain. It felt like fuel. Emily didn't expect the past to come knocking, especially not wearing an expensive suit and a nervous smile. Brent stood in the lobby of RiseTech's new headquarters, flanked by 2 federal agents. He looked thinner, paler, but his eyes still carried that calculating glint she remembered too well. Emily froze when she saw him. Time slowed. The memory of betrayal, of ruin, surged in her chest like a rising tide. Daniel moved to stand beside her protectively. "What is this?" One of the agents stepped forward. "Miss Walker, we're here to inform you that Mr. Harrison has agreed to a plea deal. In exchange for full cooperation in the ongoing fraud investigations tied to multiple firms, including those beyond your original company, he requested to deliver one message to you personally." Emily's jaw tightened. "He wants to talk? Only once. He says it's not about him." She hesitated. Every part of her wanted to walk away, but something held her in place. "Fine," she said. 5 minutes in the conference room." Brent sat across from her, eyes lowered. The room felt colder than usual. "I know I have no right to speak," he said quietly, "and I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. I don't deserve it." Emily said nothing. He glanced up. "You were always better than me." "I saw it even back then. That terrified me. I thought if I controlled the spotlight, I could keep you in my shadow. But all I did was burn everything down." She folded her arms. "So why come now?" He reached into his pocket slowly, under the agent's watchful eyes, and slid a small envelope across the table. "Because I had one last asset, something I held on to even when everything else was gone. It's a list of angel investors in South America I worked with illegally. I've kept it secret until now. They're still laundering money through shell companies, targeting startups like yours. I figured if I went down, I'd take them too." Emily opened the envelope cautiously. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten contact list. "I don't expect redemption," he said, "but maybe this gives you a weapon I never let you have before." She stared at him, trying to reconcile the monster she once feared with the man before her. "You didn't just steal a company, Brent. You stole years of my life. You broke people. Carla, your partners, me? I know," he stood. "I just wanted to say I see you now, not as someone I needed to suppress, but as someone I was too weak to become." With that, he turned and left, agents escorting him out. Emily sat in silence for a long time. Daniel came in eventually, placing a gentle hand on her back. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I think I am." For the first time, I didn't feel like the victim in the room. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today's story is titled, Millionaire Sees a Beggar with a Child and Recognizes Her. What she did next leaves everyone shocked. If you enjoy the story, make sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts on the story, and subscribe. Motivates me to making more content for yous and always improve it.